I was at the International Herb Symposium. Have you been to that event, Aviva?
I have. I've taught
Okay,
and been. Yeah.
awesome, cool. Great event. But this was, I want to say maybe back in 2012. I was tabling for Mountain Rose Herbs at the time, and someone
Mm,
came up to me and started talking to me about their career path as an herbalist. And they wanted to be a herbalist, but then they were afraid of their family and their friends judging them for, quote unquote, being a hippie. So they were considering potentially becoming a naturopathic doctor because it might be more highly esteemed, or even a medical doctor. And I like to ask accomplished herbalists this on the show sometimes, advice for the aspiring herbalist or clinician. And I'm just kind of curious, kind of from that angle, do you have any suggestions for the aspiring herbalist, or potentially those struggling with, say, the way that folks might view them if they do choose to take that route?
yeah. I mean, I think there's that sort of inner place that we all have to come to, which is we have to do what we have to do for ourselves and not, and
Yeah.
look, if you're a hippie, your family, they know it already. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
go
Yeah.
with it. Just go with
Amen.
it. But and going to naturopathic school or going to med school is not going to take the hippie out of you. And I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, I was the resident hippie in my med school class, even with
I
my
believe it.
even with my nice clothes. One time my classmate was sitting next to me. He picked my cell phone up. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just wiping the hippie off it." It's like, okay, like we're in the middle of a medical
That's hilarious.
school class. I know, it's like
Yeah.
funny. Um, and I think it's really a matter of what do you want to spend your time doing? What do you want to learn? And what do you want to be able to shift and change and influence? Also, how much stress do you want to be under? Like, those are all very different things. So, as an herbalist, in many ways, you have the most latitude and freedom to kind of just purely be yourself and just purely be focused on the plants. And if that's where your heart and soul are, you don't want to learn about supplements. You don't want to learn about X-ray or vitamin therapy or IVs or whatever the things are that you learn in naturopathic school, then I would say, if you just love the plants, you want to be able to help people, definitely there are some legalities and limitations that you need to be aware of, but it's a really beautiful path. Economically, I would say most of the herbalists that I know that are actually legit making a living, who aren't just trust fund hippies,
Right.
are people who are multilateralizing their income stream. So if you look at most of us who are in sort of like the experienced elder herbal group, whether it's myself or Rosemary or you name it, Christopher Hobbs, David, anybody I could name for the most part, Seven Song, like
Yeah.
people have other ways that they're making a living than just clinical herbal medicine. They're often teaching or running a school and or having an herbal product line and or have books. So there are multiple income streams that can help, and there are ways to do that. There are also ways that you can learn herbal medicine as an herbalist that don't require you to become a naturopath or an MD. So you could go to Bastyr. They have a bachelor's of science in herbal medicine. You could go to the Maryland School. They have a bachelor's of science, maybe even a master's degree in herbal medicine, right? So it doesn't give you a legal credential to practice, but if you're seeking more inner validation, an inner sense of legitimacy, and want some credential that's more conventional, that is a great way to go. As you go up the kind of staircase of credentialing, and not to say there's a hierarchy and he's better, any is better, but as you go into more credentialed education, your costs go up too. So, studying herbal medicine through an herbal community program, you go to a chestnut school, whatever, you have a much lower cost burden than if you were to go to a Maryland school or a Bastyr. Then you go to naturopathy school. You have to think about, do you want to spend 4 years in school? Can you move to one of where those schools are? Can you afford the whatever hundred and something $1,000 in debt that you may end up accruing? Keeping in mind that yes, naturopathic medicine is more legitimate in a sense in terms of recognized credential than being quote unquote, air quotes for those of you who are listening, just an herbalist.
Right.
But there are only a handful of states in which naturopaths are legal. So if that is your calling and your passion and you're comfortable living in one of the, dozen-ish or more, 20 states where you can truly legally practice, then great. But keep in mind some of those states are saturated because that's where everybody is a naturopath, lives in Oregon or Colorado or Oregon or
Vermont.
Vermont or Washington State, whatever.
Right.
Um, then to go to medical school, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. And just to give you perspective, I have been a physician for what, 15 years now, and I just finished paying off my med school loans 3 weeks ago, and that was $420,000.
Wow.
Let's just take that in. $420,000
Half a
of
mil.
med school loans, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot, and you basically do have to kind of check out of your daily life and your family a lot for 7 years minimum. That's with like a basic residency. If you're going to go on and do a fellowship or a surgical thing, we're talking 10 years, 12 years. So, and that's at very basic pay. So, I wouldn't change what I did for the world. I love what I did. There were reasons that I personally wanted to do that and a deeper calling. As I said, I started out wanting to be a doc when I was 9, and there were reasons that I wanted to do it to sort of be a bit of a Trojan horse and make change in medicine because I was an illegal home birth midwife for my entire practice. Not to mention just practicing as an herbalist that wasn't legal, but I really wanted to make change for particularly moms, women, and children who were marginalized in the medical system, which happens all the time. But it's a heavy road. So I would say talk with people, go really deep within yourself, and go to what calls you. That's the thing, is just really go to what calls you. And you can always add on, you can start being an herbalist. And if you're still like, no, I really want to go become an ND, you become an ND. You're going to have more herbal knowledge as an herbalist most likely than most NDs get, because that's a big smorgasbord of learning. And then if you decide you want to go to med school or become a nurse practitioner or a midwife or any of the other things, and there are a lot of other things you can become that also don't require the intensity and cost and so many levels, because there's a lot of psychic cost to becoming a doctor. And there's, I think, a deep psychic cost to become a doctor as someone like you who might be listening to this podcast, right? And I can say that. Um,
Totally.
really go deep and see what it is that inspires you, and don't feel like one thing is like the end, right? You can always do more.
That's great advice. Wow. That was also great, Aviva. Thank you for sharing. There's so much food for thought there. I love that you're really just emphasizing, know yourself, follow your heart, essentially, that's what I constantly promote as well as, what is your heart telling you to do and work towards that. It's
One
worked
of
for
my
me. And
favorite one of my
yeah,
favorite quotes is the Rumi quote,
mm,
what you're seeking is also seeking you. And
that's
it's
amazing.
never led me wrong. The
Right.
only times in my life where I say, "Oh, that didn't work out," was where I didn't trust my gut, really.
Yeah. I go by following the golden thread. I love the
I
whole
love
visual of
that.
that. Yeah. Yeah.